Hello everyone, I'm Nakvi from Birds of Play, and in this video we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the character of Auron from Final Fantasy X. And since this is intended to be a somewhat in-depth discussion on the topic of Auron, keep in mind that there will be some pretty major spoilers ahead, especially since Auron is such a central character to the story of the game. In the video we will be discussing Auron's character type, his motivations, and his reasons for keeping so much of what he knows secret from the rest of the party. If you end up liking the video, or if you just want to support the creation of more dedicated Final Fantasy content, please consider subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, and all the begging aside, let's talk a bit about one of the coolest Final Fantasy characters ever. When we take a look at Auron's character type, in the context of the Final Fantasy series, there are quite a few other characters that might jump out at us, such as Shadow from Final Fantasy VI, similarly being a man of mystery, and Vincent Valentine from Final Fantasy VII, also being a man of few words, in addition to being someone that is haunted by his past. We could also mention Aurons Role from Final Fantasy IX, who shares Auron's stoic demeanor, and if we're willing to include Final Fantasy games that were released after Final Fantasy X, we could also count Cor from Final Fantasy XV, who much like Auron serves as a sort of mentor to the group. Looking outside the series to some other well-known pieces of fiction, you could compare Auron to the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi from the original Star Wars trilogy, where Obi-Wan becomes a mentor to Luke Skywalker, or we could compare Auron to Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, who is also a mentor to the Fellowship. Although Auron might be a bit out of place in such elderly company, since he is deceptively young, only being 35, even though he looks, at least to me, considerably older. But regardless of age, Auron fulfills his role as mentor to both Tidus and Yuna, the children of his late friends Jax and Braska, and the role of Mystery Man, having intimate knowledge of the truth behind the Church of Yevon, as well as the pilgrimage the party is undertaking, yet only choosing to divulge important information when he deems it appropriate. This air of mystery surrounding Auron is established right from the start, when we see him lurking high above the city of Sanakant, greeting the incoming tidal wave, before calmly making his way through the city as it falls into ruin. Auron is the one who knows, while Tidus, along with the rest of the cast, is the one who is tasked with finding out for himself. Some might say, and have said, that Auron is using Tidus and the others for his own personal vendetta against the Church of Yevon, manipulating them by controlling the flow of information to suit his own ends. But I think this is a mischaracterization of both his relationship to the rest of the party and the Church of Yevon. It is true that, as an unsent, Auron clings to the world of the living due to having some unfinished business, but he's not a man with a vendetta, but rather a man on a mission. And he doesn't have a cross to bear, but rather a promise to fulfill. It's also true that Auron harbors no love for the Church of Yevon, but bringing the Church to its knees doesn't really appear to be on his to-do list. As a former warrior monk, Auron's ties with the Church of Yevon run deep, even to the extent that his younger self is very reminiscent of Waka, the group's most devoted Yevonite. At the end of his original pilgrimage, however, Auron's outlook towards the Church of Yevon has changed considerably, but mostly in the sense that in the grand scheme of things, the Church has become inconsequential to his mission, a hollow manifestation that masks a deeper underlying problem. His thoughts on this matter start to become clear when he tells Yuna that it isn't the temples that grant the summoners their power, but rather their faith themselves. In much the same way, Auron's real gripe isn't with the Church of Yevon per se, but rather with Lady Yuna Leska and the institution of the final summoning, both of which have an independent existence from the Church of Yevon. But it's not a quest for vengeance, because even as he makes his way back to Lady Yuna Leska, after having confronted her 10 years prior, resulting in his death, his real anger and resentment isn't directed at her, but rather the past version of himself that lacked the power to save his friends, being faced with that version of himself, leading to a rare emotional outburst. So Auron's immediate concern isn't to bring down the Church of Yevon or to get revenge on Lady Yuna Leska, but rather to find an alternative to the final summoning and to free his friend Jax from the burden of his sacrifice. But is he still using Tidus and the others to get his way? even if his way is a bit more noble than just dishing out his own personal brand of vengeance. Why doesn't he just tell his fellow travelers everything he knows? Why does he need to retain an air of mystery for as long as he does, leading all the way up to the big reveal in Sanakant, where the party finds out the cruel truth about the final summoning? One might surmise that, with his silence, Auron ensured that they would see the pilgrimage through to the end, and that he was the puppeteer behind their journey. In actuality, however, I think that his silence and mysteriousness is a result of the exact opposite. That is to say, Auron's insistence on their right to govern their own lives. Auron said it best himself, just before he and Titus got sucked up into sin. This is your story. These are the words that frame Auron's actions as he accompanies the younger generation on their journey, letting them experience the world they are fighting for on their own terms as much as possible. The only person he dragged along for the ride was Titus, but even that wasn't Auron acting as the mastermind behind the scenes, since he did it at the behest of Jact, Titus' father. Auron even asks Jact, in the form of Sin, whether he is sure about taking Titus to Spira. There, it is Yuna herself who has decided to follow in her father's footsteps to become a summoner, and Auron and Titus just tag along for the ride. And when they finally reach the end of the road, Auron presents them with the same choice he faced with his friends 10 years earlier, but the choice is theirs alone. The fact that Auron's goal wasn't the destruction of the Church of Yevon is further emphasized by him asking Yuna to send him to the far plane right after the battle with Sin and Yevon has concluded, seeing as he shows no interest in sticking around to make sure the Church of Yevon actually comes to an end. His parting words also reflect his desire for the group to live their own lives and make their own decisions, as he tells them that this is their world now. Damn, that guy sure knows how to make an exit. Thanks for watching. What do you think about Auron? Any interesting facet of his character you feel wasn't done justice by my ramblings? Let's discuss the issues down in the comments below, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you're only one button away from more Final Fantasy content every week. While you think about whether or not to subscribe, let me sing you the song of my people. Go, 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 go.